Hello, everyone. My name is Megan Macaron, the creator of the Megan Method and Ditch the Diet, the new course coming out to help us shift away from the diet mentality. Today we have Dr. Amy Johnson on. Hello, Amy.
Hi, Megan. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. So, Amy, I'd love it if you just told everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do and how you got into your field.
Sure. I am a coach and an author, and I help people end habits and find freedom from anxiety without using willpower. So I share this understanding of who we are spiritually, how our mind works, and with a deeper understanding of how our experience works and why we have these habits and why we feel the way we do, people begin to find a lot of freedom from the things that hold them back without having to kind of work or fight their way through.
Wow, that was put so well. I love it. And so for everybody listening, I found Dr. Amy Johnson about 4 years ago now and followed you on your podcast and read your book. I have it here. I love it. It might be very highlighted possibly, but I really love it. And what you just said is something that honestly helped me realize my own emotional eating. And that is that I don't have to be so afraid of it. And I don't have to react to it all the time. And it isn't so scary to me anymore, which is nice. Right. And that I was always so focused on the scale and weight loss that I wasn't willing to work on the other stuff because my focus was always on this number on the scale. And when I let go of that and I was able to let that be a byproduct of my thoughts around food and my beliefs around food changing, that was just refreshing and freedom to me. So
It's huge. It's huge. And it's kind of where we all get tangled up, because something happens. We're obsessed with the scale or numbers or our weight or what we eat or whatever. And our focus is just there so much. And like you said, we kind of are blind to all that's going right in a bigger picture of things. We just have this goal and it's just all that's on our mind. And the only way we can see to change those things is to do hard things, like make ourselves eat differently. And it's so hard and rigid and just kind of limited, so I love when we can just step back a little bit and look at a bigger picture of who we really are and how all of this is really working. It changes everything.
definitely. Definitely. I remember my personal training clients say I'm the easiest trainer because after becoming a trainer, I realized wow, I don't want to tell people to work out because I want them to figure out what they enjoy doing and they would continue to do, and then I could guide them there. But I realized that really quickly as a personal trainer, which I thought was hilarious. So you had your own food story, correct? I don't know if you want to share that at all, but you can. And I thought maybe I could ask you, what was one food you thought was off limits? Like you just could never possibly enjoy life and lose weight or be happy with your body if that food was in your life because it was so bad for you. And now maybe you allow yourself to eat all the time.
Oh, good question. Yeah. Well, I'll start with that one. So my food, it's kind of a class of foods, but it's all in the ice cream, cupcakes field
Yeah.
arena. Anything with buttercream or anything that was that would have been my binge food of choice or my class of binge foods of choice. And it was 100% black or white. I mean, it was I'm just going to eat it all until I'm sick, or I will never ever ever touch it. And it blew my mind to think of how people were out in the world just naturally, normally eating those things and stopping when they were done.
Right.
And even more so, how people were eating those things and not instantly gaining 5 pounds. Because that's what I felt like happened with me. I mean, in part because I was binging on them, but I swear I would feel like I would eat a taste of something and the whole body dysmorphia thing. I was convinced I had just gained a bunch of weight. And it was so interesting, a little aside, but it was so interesting. My kids are now 8 and 10, and they were really little when I found freedom from my binge eating. But I would see kids, maybe mine when they were 2 or 3, mostly other people's kids, who would, go to birthday parties and eat 3 pieces of pizza and a giant piece of cake and a huge scoop of ice cream. And these are kids that weigh 70 pounds as it is.
Right.
And I would think, you should have just gained 5 pounds by the rules I put on myself, right? And they don't. And it would just, I could not wrap my head around it. So anyway, there's a lot of things like that. Daily exercise is another one of those that I thought, if you're not working hard
Mm-hmm.
and sweating and suffering, you're just going to gain weight that day. Like, you have to suffer in a workout every day in order just to maintain. I don't know where that came from, but
I
that's
had the
not.
exact same belief. And I'm a
Isn't it
personal trainer.
crazy? It's crazy. And I love to work out now, and I love to not suffer, but I love to sweat and be sore afterward, like really work hard. But there's no way it looks like that's necessary for any, not at all like it used to.
Right.
So I'll tell you my little story, like the short version. I mean, basically I had a lot of anxiety for a long time, and I used to have panic attacks, and anxiety came out in all kinds of ways. And in my mid-20s, I got the panic attacks. I went to therapy and did different things, and the panic attacks were pretty much under wraps. But I guess I didn't realize I still had a lot of underlying stuff. I just felt antsy a lot, and I also used to smoke back then, and I quit smoking. And with all of this stuff sort of combined, I ended up just getting really obsessive about weight and food. And it really just feels like that. It wasn't something that was there my whole life or anything like that. But it was almost like when my mind didn't have panic attacks to worry about, and I wasn't smoking to like calm my nerves, something else, my mind just wasn't fully settled, and it was going to grab something else, and it just chose that. So I started just thinking it'd be a good idea to lose some weight and restrict and all of that, and it just snowballed. And for 8 years off and on, I really struggled with bulimia and binge eating, and kind of did all the things. I mean, those were back in the law of attraction days, and I said all the mantras and did all that. I tried every food plan. I went to traditional therapy like crazy for 8 years, and then came across this understanding that we share, and that just did it for me. I mean, within weeks, I absolutely knew, okay, this is over for me, and within a month or so, I really was done, and I knew I was done.
So exciting. And what I love about this is that we're both smiling as you tell this story that most people want to cringe to,
Yeah.
right? Or they might be going through it themselves, but like we're here smiling because we can look back at it and see what we overcame. And I love what you said is that your brain latched on to something. It just happened to be food, and it just shows it wasn't personal. It was just your brain doing its job and kind of latching on to something to help you get through whatever you're feeling.
I totally believe that. I could have easily become a hoarder or an overworker or anything in the world. For whatever reason, my mind was on food, and that's where it went. And I think it's a really huge point, because as you know, in your work too, I mean, there's so many layers of, it's personal, and it's about the food, and it's about my self-esteem and all of that. And, it's not that we want to dismiss that or anything, but it adds complexity. It's a lot simpler than that. It's what you said, our brain grabs onto something and talks about it all the time.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing to add on to that really helped me was just stop trying to put myself into cookie cutter labels and stuff. Cause if I was trying to diet, like I was that diet, like I was, now this is who I am. I'm a keto person, or I'm a vegan, or whatever it was. And instead it's totally fine to learn from a diet and like parts, and learn from a diet and like parts, and just create your own thing. And I couldn't see that for myself at all, though, for a very long time. I was always very strict, and if it didn't work, it was always my fault, and something was wrong with me, and it could never be the diet's fault, basically, because no diet was working, so it had to be me.
Right. Yeah. It's so great when our mind just settles down a little bit to where, like you said, we can just pick and choose and just find what makes sense to us. And I think that's how it's meant to be. But we innocently, we see a diet there in black and white, and especially when your mind is kind of revved up and busy and you think you need something to feel okay, we're just going to latch on to what we see.
Definitely. So I have another question, and that is, with some clients that I work with right now, their biggest thing is instant gratification. Basically, really, really wanting to see the number on the scale move still, even though we're working on like the mindset side of stuff. And so I've been working with them and stuff, just basically saying, what my theory personally is that it's a byproduct, right? If we let go of the desire for weight loss to be this perfect thing, and the number on the scale to reflect perfectly for what we think it should in the moment, that by shifting our beliefs around food, by understanding our habits and how they're working, byproduct, I'm sorry, weight loss is a byproduct because our habits are naturally changing. So we're not overeating as much and such, right? Do you have another way that you would explain it at all to clients that really want that instant gratification of weight loss and don't want to wait? So maybe aren't open to the process fully?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what you said is right on. And the thing is, we've all tried to just like stare at the scale and weigh ourselves multiple times a day and will ourselves, do all the hard work to make it go down faster. And it just doesn't work that way. Honest to God, like it just doesn't, it can short term, but it doesn't, that is not freedom.
Right.
That is weight loss, perhaps, maybe. And in many cases, it's weight gain because we're so obsessed about it, right?
Right.
So at best, that gets us temporary weight loss. Like if you're trying to lose weight for a wedding that's coming up in 2 weeks, you can probably do it, but we all know as soon as that wedding's over, you're done for. It's
Yep.
not a long-term thing, and it's not freedom. So that's kind of, in addition to what you said, another sort of side of that to look at, like, what do you want and why is it so important to go from 150 to 130 or whatever your mind is set on? Like the numbers are arbitrary. Even our weight is so arbitrary. It's not the only reason we ever want a certain weight and we want all of that is because how we think we're going to feel when we get it. And when
Right.
people start to see that bigger picture, like, no, it's not where our feelings come from. We can feel at peace truly at any weight. And I know people hate to hear that when they're struggling with their weight, but I think that's just the place to look. And then you're absolutely right. As we relax, it is in our nature to eat relatively well, not perfectly, but to move our bodies, to eat relatively well. And almost everyone I've ever seen who's had their mind so rigid about it start to relax, they go to their natural weight.
Right.
Whatever that is, it may not be their goal weight, but they go to a weight that's healthy and natural for them pretty effortlessly.
Right. Right. And I think that after years of struggling, of feeling basically crazy around food or the scale or my body,
Yeah.
that for me, I had that, like, I want this number on the scale. And even though I hadn't let go of it fully, that relaxation I felt around food was like, maybe the number really doesn't matter. And the more I felt that relaxation, the more I let go of the number. So it was definitely a process. And I remember that clearly, that it
Yes.
didn't just, like, for me personally, it wasn't just an overnight, like, wow, I'm just brand new. I feel fixed. Not that I was ever broken, but I just feel like bettered, it was definitely a process and very slow for me,
Yes.
which
For
isn't a
me
bad
too.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, for me too. And I remember hitting a point where I was just so consumed and so struggling with the disordered eating and obsession pieces of it that I really did say, you know what, maybe I don't care what I weigh. And that was hard because I'm back in my mind, I was like, yes, you do. but it was a bit of a surrender of a little light coming through to say, wow, my mind just keeps screaming at me that this made up number or whatever it was, size, whatever matters. What if it doesn't? Just what if?
Right.
And then, like you, it's like a slow unraveling sometimes, but we get there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that once I realized it really didn't matter, I actually got lower in weight than I've ever been in my life. Not saying that happened to everybody, but it was like, wow, like effortless. I'm like, how did this happen? Like during COVID, I'm like amazed at myself. I haven't put weight on, even though it's been 3 or 4 years since I've even binged, which is amazing to me. I'm not perfect. I still overeat because food is just delicious. It's not the easiest thing to stop eating, but it's more about, just progress, not that perfection that we're always looking for. So. Yeah.
It's so funny that you say that. Like, I mean, really, and I just remember feeling so confused and hopeless about this. Like like I said earlier, how in the world are some people they just eat when they're hungry and they don't plan all their meals and all of that. And I just remember so many times thinking, if I could have anything, I just want to live that for the rest of my life. Not because I wanted to be a certain weight, because I knew there was so much more I could do with my energy and my life without that weight and obsession of it. And truly, I mean, that's exactly what's happened. And same as what you said, I weigh less than I ever did, even when I was like restricting like a champ and working out like crazy,
Right.
It's like, it's natural and it truly is effortless. And so I don't know. I just think that's good good to put these stories out for people to see if they're where we were back then. Like, you might not even be able to imagine that it's possible for you, but it absolutely is, because it's natural. It's how we're designed to live.
Definitely, definitely. It's basically living your life in line with how your body works instead of paddling upriver, fighting the
Yeah.
current every day, because you're just fighting your own brain or your own body's hunger signals. And you're like, you're not allowed to eat right now because it hasn't been 3 hours. Well, I'm hungry now. I don't tell myself to wait to pee, you know?
Yeah.
um, so awesome. And so do you have any, is there like one common like myth or misunderstanding around this kind of stuff, like maybe dieting or weight loss specifically, or a pet peeve myth that gets to you that you kind of want to clarify for people at all? And you don't have to have one, but
Yeah, well, I think it's a lot of I think what's really common is a lot of kind of what you brought up, of people fearing that if they take their eye off of their tracking their food or weighing themselves or whatever, that it's going to hurt
mm,
rather than help, you know? And it sounds like you've had this experience too, where sometimes people are like a little reluctant to even open to a new understanding, because what's first and foremost in their mind is getting down to their goal weight or something, you know? And just what you said, like helping them see. I always try to remind them, like, I want you to stop binging too, if that's what you're up to. Like, of course, that's
right.
what we want for you. But that doesn't mean that all day, every day, we need to be talking and thinking about binging.
Mm,
And in fact, that's the irony, right? It's almost like that's not about avoiding it or not talking about it, but the more we open up to, like, well, what is our nature? How does our body work, and how do we get, like you said, aligned to how it's already working and always has been, how it wants to work? What's there for us beyond all this food weight chatter? It's very scary at times to look there when you're in that obsessive mode, because, but because you just think there's no way, if I take my eye off this, it's all going to fall apart even worse. But it's
right.
just the opposite.
Yeah, definitely. It really is. And then there's that fear. Like I remember I had that exact fear. I let myself do it and I saw, wow, I didn't have to white knuckle through that binge. That was amazing. But
Yeah.
then there was this other fear that's like, what do I do with this energy now? You know, like now I have all
Yeah.
this free time. What am I doing? And it
Yeah.
was amazing to just not always like everything, like social get-togethers, happy hour, going just going on a hike and worrying like, can I have this bagel on this hike? You know, and
Yeah.
like, can I get away with these calories because I burnt calories, or should I go run because I ate too many calories today? And all these things, like I was doing mathematical equations in my head consistently, trying to figure out what I could get away with and what I couldn't get away with food wise and exercise wise. And it was taking up so much time and energy. And it feels so nice to just do whatever feels good for me every day and know that I'm living in line with my body.
Yeah. That reminds me of something that's another sort of thing I hear a lot, that used to make perfect sense, but now kind of baffles me. The mathematical equation thing.
Yeah.
We're wrong. For everyone out there doing all these mathematical equations, you're dead wrong. And for people which was me, like, stepping on the scale multiple times a day, that's not accurate.
Right.
Like how in the world would you gain 2 pounds or a pound? And that happens, right? There's so many just crazy factors. So it's like, what a scale says, our estimate of how many calories we've eaten or burned or whatever, oh my gosh, we're like totally making it up. Where, we can maybe even what the scale says, I believe, like it's just given us a very unimportant ballpark figure that's wavering throughout the day. Yet when we have that rigid mindset, we're convinced that we're right. And that's, it's really good to see that we're wrong about all that.
100%. One of the things I've been talking about a lot lately is confirmation bias and how I noticed it for myself, specifically around diets, where like if I believed carbs were bad, any diet that allowed carbs, I either wouldn't do it or I would do it, but I would do it and still cut carbs and eventually have a binge because I was cutting those carbs. So like really noticing how I was getting in my own way like that, and how my own belief around just something as simple as what carbohydrates I was allowed to have was continuously getting in my way to doing anything long term.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
definitely.
yeah, it's wonderful to talk about
Yes.
this. Yeah. Is there anything that you think that the listeners would benefit from that we haven't talked about so far? I've covered all my questions I've had for a long time.
Yeah.
So
Well, I don't know. I mean, these have, it's been a great conversation. I think you asked some great questions. I think I think to really look in that direction of the fact we know that our brains have this confirmation bias, that our math is off, that our mind and really our brain, like we know this from brain science, that our brain is constantly providing reasons and justifications and stories and all of that. And when we're caught up in some kind of eating issue, those are like through the roof. And it's not just that they're through the roof, it's that we really believe them when they show up. So I think that piece is just so big to see, like to be a little skeptical of how your mind is reasoning things out. If it hurts, if it feels limiting, it's not true. And that's kind of shocking, because I remember hearing that again when I was, making myself hurt in workouts every day and all of that. And if it doesn't feel like freedom, there's something that your mind is adding to it that isn't the truth of it. Now, again, we're not saying eating healthy isn't good for you or exercise isn't good for you, but if it feels restrictive and tight and like you wouldn't want to do it for a lifetime, your mind is making up something. And often those things are pretty invisible, like we just say it's just the way it is, until we realize, oh no, that was something added. That was a thought that I just thought was the truth of things.
Right. And you might not even see it. Like even just carbs are bad. Like I might not have, when this happened in real life, real time, I wasn't aware that belief was caused me to not go towards certain diets and go towards others. But now that I am, that's huge. And I can be aware of it going forward with anything now, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's absolutely beautiful the way you put that. And I totally agree. I think that which is also why I'm just able to laugh at myself now. And that's what I want. I want people to laugh at just how funny it really can be when you really think about it, and when the way I see it is that if I can laugh at it, truly laugh at it, not fake laugh, right? Truly laugh at it. It's just not scary anymore. And when it's not scary, it's not taken so seriously, and we don't panic and we don't react. We give ourselves time to calm ourselves down a little bit, however that works for us, and just see the other options and the other choices out there instead of just that tunnel vision.
Yeah. Yeah. And to notice how much common sense and just like in the moment wise choices come up when we aren't sticking to some kind of rigid rules and plan, and I know a lot of people have a hard time trusting that initially because we're so tied to what we think is right.
Right.
It seems so scary to let that go. But I remember, just really like saying, I'm just going to let it go for this one meal, and I'm just going to eat what I'm hungry for and just see how that goes. And I was convinced, part of my head was convinced, okay, I probably just gained a bunch of weight and this is all. But like you said earlier too, like, no, I realized that little by little, and it took a while of just easing in and like being curious about what I thought, what my body wanted and not what my head was saying.
Mm.
It just changed everything. There's no reason or desire or need to hide in a closet and eat food or like do that kind of stuff when your body starts seeing and your brain starts seeing, oh wow, like she's relaxed and she's going to eat what she needs and not eat what she doesn't need. It's like everything, I don't know, just kind of recalibrates, and then we get to be like kids again where we're just doing what makes sense.
That's a great way of putting it. Just what makes sense in the moment instead of trying to pre-plan the unknown future based off of our predictions of what we think are most likely to happen, And there's nothing wrong with a routine or a plan. I find them very helpful. It's just about being flexible and adaptable versus rigid with that plan. So, yeah. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Where can people find you if they want to follow you and learn from you?
So my website is dramyjohnson.com. And yeah, that's the best place. I have my books are there, a podcast, and I have an online school called the Little School of Big Change that people can see more about there.
Awesome. This was wonderful. Thank you so much. And I will let you know when I post it.
All right.